Training with heart rate. What does it mean to train with heart rate? Heart rate is how fast our hearts are beating, and we measure it as beats per minute, or BPM. Training with heart rate means adjusting our efforts in training and competition based on this measured heart rate. How is heart rate measured? Heart rate is measured with a heart rate monitor, often referred to as an HRM, which transmits data to a paired screen, like a watch or a bike computer, for the athlete to view during their activity. That data is then also saved for later review, and for Playtri App users with compatible devices, it is also used to analyze efforts within the Playtri App. We always recommend a chest or arm-based HRM, not the wrist-based HRMs currently built into training watches. Unfortunately, wrist-based HRMs still lack consistent accuracy for many athletes. These are examples of what an HRM might look like, whether it's a chest strap, like the two straps on the outer edges of the slide, or an arm strap, like the one in the middle. And this is how your heart rate data may show up on your training device that you're using for your program. So why train with heart rate? Here at Playtri, heart rate has been a critical component in our training systems for over 2 decades and has resulted in countless positive outcomes for our athletes. Heart rate is an objective measure of intensity, which is important because studies show that humans adapt best to training that is varied, increases gradually over time, and allows time to recover, whether it's during one session or over days, weeks, months, and years. Effort given during training sessions directly impacts all 3 of these components of successful training, and heart rate gives us an objective measure of that effort that isn't colored by emotion or how the athlete is feeling on the day of the workout or competition. In this same vein, we race with heart rate because studies show that certain intensities are unsustainable for long periods of time. And because triathlon and duathlon are endurance sports, athletes have to keep intensity in check on race day if they want to finish strong and race to potential. Heart rate zones are a critical component of heart rate training, and they are ranges based on beats per minute that define specific energy system use for an individual athlete. Heart rate zones are specific to the individual athlete and cannot be calculated through any formula or algorithm without some kind of testing with that specific athlete. This application uses a method known as field testing to determine heart rate zones. In field testing, you complete a specific exercise protocol while recording your heart rate on a training device, and then use the heart rate data to calculate zones. It's important to note that athletes almost always have different zones for cycling and running, so it's important during the testing weeks that you complete both the cycling and the running test, so we make sure the application has accurate zones for both activities. Here at Playtri, we utilize 4 heart rate zones to help our athletes measure their efforts and achieve their goals. The first zone is below training pace, and this is our recovery zone. We use it for some long workouts, and we use it with athletes who are just getting started or coming back from a long break, and they need to be able to do the workout safely without getting injured. Below training pace should always feel easy. The next zone, training pace, is our aerobic endurance zone, and we use this to build our endurance engine, so we're using it for some of our longer workouts and oftentimes for long course racing like half iron, 70.3, and Ironman. At the top of training pace, there is a physiological phenomenon that occurs called onset of blood lactate accumulation. You don't need to remember that phrase, but basically what it means is at the top of this zone, our body has started to produce more lactate in our blood as a result of the metabolic process than it can process out at the same time. And at this point, we're going into race pace, which is a less sustainable zone. Training pace can, in theory, be sustained forever, as long as all of our systems are supported. Race pace cannot. Race pace we use for tempo workouts, speed workouts, and for some short course racing like sprint and Olympic distances. Typically, athletes only use race pace in short course racing if they're looking to compete, not just complete. Finally, above race pace, we have our hard zone. This is a heavily anaerobic zone, and we use it for VO2 and speed workouts, as well as some short course racing. This application doesn't use the hard training zone because for most athletes, the benefits of training in that hard zone are few. You're more likely to get injured as a result of spending significant time in that zone than you are to get benefit without a coach specifically overseeing your program. Once you complete your bike and run heart rate tests, you will be prescribed heart rate zones in the application. Before starting each training session, make sure you check to see what the prescribed zones are for the session, and if needed, double check what the beats per minute range is for that zone. Check in on your zones frequently throughout the session and adjust effort if needed to stay within the zones. Even if you feel like you're capable of doing more, it's very important to stick to the zones because they're going to make sure that you're able to do the workout not just today, but tomorrow and the next day, because you're doing just enough to stress your body, but also allow it to recover properly. In the same vein, before races, check and see what the recommended zones are for each part of the race. Double check your zones prior to race day, and then check in on your zones frequently throughout the race and adjust if needed. Remember, triathlon is an endurance sport, even at the shortest distances. If you want to take risks in the race, it's important to take them at the end, not early on. Stick to your zones so you can finish strong.